I was talking the other day with a friend of a friend who's becoming a professional photographer. We were talking about the new digital technology coming out now. Did you know that anyone with $2,000 can just go down to their local camera store and buy a digital camera? These cameras take a picture and record the image digitally on compact disc or other such media. This friend was expressing some uncertainty about the future because digital technology is undermining the assumed authenticity of photography. Any image you see today in newspapers, magazines, even TV could have been created to meet the needs of the producer rather than being a reflection of reality. This would-be photographer wants to work in the fashion industry, and in fashion photography it's already true that images no longer are based on reality, only imagination. Used to be, the fashion industry had to find women who fit their unique ideas of the human form. Now they just make up their own. Where has truth gone? I realize that photography's always been suspicious in terms of truth issues. It's always been possible to manipulate images to produce a desired effect, but it was usually possible for an experienced eye to tell the difference. Often even an unexperienced eye could do it. But today, there's no way to know for sure. The image one sees in the news or the magazines is real or not. As art, the issue is not as significant because art is imaginative by nature. The issue becomes more disturbing in the area of news. But photography is not our only problem area with truth these days. We live in the age of postmodernism. In our culture, forms, images, and sound bites have become more important than content. Take Bruce Springsteen's song. The song is a radical critique of imperialism, yet Ronald Reagan was able to use it in his 1984 presidential campaign. Form over content, image over truth. This problem with truth is widespread, too. According to a recent book, Rush Limbaugh's Reign of Error, Limbaugh seems to just make up anything he likes to support his cruel view of the world. Is there a principle here that I'm missing? Where is this man's integrity? And on the subject of integrity, turns out, according to another new book, Senator for Sale, that President wannabe Bob Dole will support just about any legislation, provided one gives him and his campaign committee enough money. Where is this man's integrity? You see, the new technology in photography just highlights this larger issue. But why do we have such a problem with truth and integrity these days? The usual answer is that in postmodernism, we've lost our reference points, our standards. But what does that really mean? Well, try this out. The ruling class denies that there's a class struggle, denies that the interests of working people and owners are different, usually completely opposed. Right? Time magazine would never acknowledge this state of affairs. Starting back in the 1800s, the ruling class claimed that bourgeois revolutions represented workers as much as owners against the aristocracy. The ruling class adopted a new language, or style of language, to keep these waters muddied. The kings never pretended that they were the same as the peasants, that their interests were the same. But capitalists do make these claims, at least in public. In private, they still believe themselves to be superior, and thus believe that the poverty and misery which accompany capitalism are not significant. For 200 years now, the media and politicians have talked about capitalist class interests and ideas as if they represented all of humanity. What this means is that when most politicians or the commercial media use the words our, we, or America, what they mean is we rich people, usually rich white male people. According to statistics recently published in the New York Times, less than 5% of the households in America make over $100,000 per year. But how much of the public policy discussions, let alone advertising, assume this small group of people to be the standard, the reference point? Who is Bob Dole's constituency? The less than 5%, or more likely the less than 0.5%, who can contribute significant sums to his pocket, or the rest of us, who can't? So when Bob Dole, Bill Clinton, or any other capitalist politician talks about right and wrong, sound fiscal policy, and disaster, he or she is talking to and for a particular small group of people and not to us working stiffs. The things they say are a lie when presented to the public at large, because the issues that are true and important to capitalists are not what is true and important to us. Usually they're the opposite. Yet in our culture, capitalist ideologues still use the words which imply they are speaking to and for all of America. This state of affairs, postmodernism and its accompanying political discourse, has so jaded us that we no longer even expect truth from politicians or the media. Limbaugh can lie all he wants, just make up a reality which is comfortable for him and his advertisers, because we don't demand truth or integrity any longer. And in fact, we've even lost the tools to distinguish truth from falsity in the blur of sound bites and images. Not everyone listening to Limbaugh would recognize when he's making stuff up. Somebody had to research it, look things up, check statistics, and then discover that the truth is not that which Limbaugh speaks. It took a lot of work. Limbaugh isn't going to tell you he's lying. as advertisers certainly won't publicize a book which documents it. In the end, art is still just art. Regardless of the technology, good art reflects reality, bad art covers it up. Oliver Stone may get criticized for his art. But the reality he reflects is true, it just doesn't fit the fiction of reality that the ruling class chooses to portray. The issue is, and has always been, the integrity of the artist, journalist, or politician. That something as basic as a photograph has now lost its assumed truth value changes the world in that news must now, unarguably, be viewed with a suspicious eye. Technology has now made obvious what was always true ideologically. That is to say, news has always been suspicious, we just used to pretend that editors and journalists were objective. No human being is objective. The real issue is integrity. This is Richard Curtis.
Richard Curtis is a freelance writer and co-chair of the Colorado District of the Communist Party, USA. It's 22 minutes after 8 o'clock. You're